Like most ancient religions and cultures, the Nordic people had a complicated pantheon of deities. Before we delve into the list of gods, it's important to clear up a major misconception. People tend to think that there's only one pantheon of Norse gods, but that's not exactly the case. The Norse worship two sets of gods, the Aesir or Asgardian gods, and the Vanir gods. The Aesir were worshipped among all the Norse people, from Scandinavia to the Germanic tribes in Central Europe, while the Vanir gods are believed to have originated in Scandinavia. They are represented mainly by Freyja and Freyr and were more peaceful compared to the warlike Asgardians. In some myths, the Vanir gods joined the Aesir in Asgard after the Great Aesir vs. Vanir War, while in others they remained separated. These Nordic gods have inspired modern culture, making them highly significant and relevant even today. In this video, we'll take a look at the most important Norse gods, their origins, and powers. Mimir was one of the oldest and wisest gods in Norse mythology. His wisdom was so well known that he was also said to have advised the Aesir Allfather Odin. Mimir's name is the origin of the modern English word memory. Mimir met his end after the Aesir vs. Vanir War. He was one of the gods sent by Odin to negotiate a truce. However, because Mimir was so wise and cunning, the Vanir gods suspected him of cheating during the negotiations, and so cut off his head and sent it back to Asgard. According to some myths, Mimir's body and head lie near the Mimisbrunner well in the roots of the world tree Yggdrasil, where Odin sacrificed one of his eyes to gain wisdom. In other legends, however, Odin preserved Mimir's head with herbs and charms. This allowed Mimir's head to live on and whisper wisdom and advice into Odin's ear. Famous as both an Aesir goddess and a Jotun, Skadi was associated with winter, skiing, mountains, and bow hunting. In some myths, Skadi married the Vanir god Njord and became the mother of Freyr and Freyja. Many scholars believe that the goddess's name is the origin of the term Scandinavia, where many of the Norse myths and legends came from. The husband of the goddess of youth and a god of poetry, Bragi was the bard of Asgard. His name roughly translates to poet in Old Norse. Many of Bragi's traits and myths seem similar to legends of the 9th century bard Bragi Bodisson, who served in the courts of Ragnar Lodbrok and Björn at Hog. It's unclear whether the gods' myths were ascribed to the real-life poet or vice versa. In some legends, the bard went to Valhalla where he received godhood for his famed ballads. A son of Odin and the giantess Rindr, Vali was born with the sole purpose of avenging the death of his brother Baldur. Vali avenges Baldur by killing his other sibling, Baldur's blind twin Hor, who had accidentally killed Baldur. After killing Hor, Vali also took his vengeance on Loki, the god of mischief who had tricked Hor into killing Baldur. Vali bound Loki in the entrails of Loki's own son, Narfi. As a god born to exact vengeance, Vali grew to adulthood within a day. After he fulfilled his destiny, he lived on in Asgard with the rest of the Aesir gods. He was also prophesied to be one of the few to survive Ragnarok together with his other brother Vidar, also a god of vengeance. A daughter of the trickster god Loki, Hel was the ruler of the Norse underworld Helheim, or Hel's kingdom. Her siblings were the world serpent Jormungandr and the giant wolf Fenrir, so it's fair to say that she comes from a fairly dysfunctional family. Her name later became synonymous with Hel in the Christian mythos, but Helheim was very different from the Christian Hel. In Christianity, Hel is said to be full of fire and eternal torment, but Helheim is a quiet and gloomy place. The Nordic people went to Helheim after their death not when they were bad, but when they died of old age. Essentially, Helheim was the boring afterlife for those who had led boring lives, while Valhalla and Volkvanger were the exciting afterlives for those who had lived adventurous lives. Idun was a Norse goddess of rejuvenation and eternal youth. Her name literally translates to the rejuvenated one, and she was described as having long blonde hair. A wife of the poet god Bragi, Idun had fruits, or epli, that bestowed immortality on those who ate them. Often described as apples, these epli are said to be what made the Norse gods immortal. As such, it is Idun who makes the Norse gods a little more human, as they don't owe their immortality to their divine nature, but to Idun's apples. Heimdall is one of the more famous of the Norse gods, and yet there is no consensus on who his parents were. Some legends even described Heimdall as a Vanir god. Whatever his origins, Heimdall was best known as a guardian and protector of Asgard. He dwelt at the entrance to Asgard, guarding the Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge. He wielded the horn Gjallarhorn, which he used to alert his fellow Asgardian gods about approaching threats. He's described as having extremely sensitive hearing and vision, which allowed him to even hear wool growing on sheep or to see 100 leagues into the distance. Brother of Freyja and son of Njord, Freyr was a peaceful god of farming and fertility. Depicted as a large and brawny man, Freyr was often accompanied by his pet boar Gullinborsti. He was also said to travel the world on a chariot drawn by giant boars. The daughter of Njord and a matriarch deity of the Vanir pantheon, Freyja was a goddess of love, lust, fertility, and war. In some myths, she's married to her brother Freyr, but in most, she's a wife of Or, the frenzied one. While a peaceful and loving deity, Freyja didn't hesitate to defend her realm and her people in battle, which is why she was also known as a goddess of war. It is said that Freyja took half of all warriors who died heroically in battle into her heavenly field Volkvanger, while the other half joined Odin in Valhalla, the Hall of Slain Warriors. Njord was the allfather of the Vanir gods, standing in contrast to Odin of the Aesir, or Asgardian gods. Njord was the father of Freyja and Freyr, the two most famous Vanir deities, and was viewed as a god of the sea as well as wealth and fertility. After the Aesir vs. Vanir war, Njord went to Asgard for the peace treaty between the two pantheons and decided to live there with the Aesir. In Asgard, Njord married the giantess Skadi, who gave birth to Freyja and Freyr. However, in other myths, the siblings were alive during the Aesir vs. Vanir war and were born from Njord's relationship with his own sister. Either way, from then on, Njord was known as both a Vanir and an Aesir god. Vidar was a Norse god of vengeance. A son of Odin and the Jotun Grid, or Greer, Vidar's name translates as wide ruler. He was described as a silent god, as he didn't speak much, however his actions more than made up for that. During Ragnarok, it was Vidar who slew the giant wolf Fenrir and avenged the death of Odin. Vidar was also one of the very few Asgardian gods to survive Ragnarok, and he lived on the field of Idavol after the Great Battle, awaiting the new cycle of the world. The Norse god of justice and reconciliation. Forseti's name translates as the Presiding One, or President in modern Icelandic and Faroese. A son of Baldur and Anna, Forseti acted as a just judge. All who visited Forseti for justice or for a ruling were said to leave reconciled. Forseti's peaceful justice stands in contrast with Tyr, who also reached justice but through war and conflict, not reasoning. Tyr was a god of war and a favorite among most Germanic tribes. Tyr, said to be the bravest of the gods, was associated not just with wars but also with all the formalities of war and battles, including signing peace treaties. Because of that, he was also worshipped as a god of justice and oaths. Tyr's most famous myth involves the binding of Fenrir. The gods who viewed Fenrir as a threat wanted to chain the giant wolf up and keep him at bay. They tricked Fenrir into being bound, but Fenrir, who suspected foul play, refused to be bound with special chains, unless one of the gods put their hand in his jaws as a sign of good faith. Tyr volunteered to do this for the sake of all living things, knowing that he would lose his hand. When Fenrir discovered that he had been trapped and couldn't escape the bindings, he chewed off Tyr's hand. In another instance of canine misfortune, Tyr was killed by Garm, the guard dog of Hel during Ragnarok. The goddess Sif was a wife of Thor and was associated with the earth, just like his mother Yor. She was known for her golden hair, which Loki once cut as a prank. Fleeing Thor's wrath, Loki was tasked with finding a replacement for Sif's golden hair, and so he went to Svartalheim, the realm of the dwarves. There, Loki not only obtained a new set of golden hair for Sif, but he also had the dwarves create Thor's hammer Mjolnir, Odin's spear Gungnir, Freyr's ship Skidlander, and several other treasures. The goddess Sif is associated with the concepts of family and fertility, as the Old English word for family, sib, comes from the Old Norse sif. The beloved son of Odin and Frigg and a younger half-brother of Thor, Baldur was worshipped as a god of the sun itself. He was believed to be wise, gracious, and divine, as well as fair and more beautiful than any flower. His mother Frigg had taken oaths from everything on Earth to ensure that her son wouldn't be harmed by anything, but she had missed mistletoe. Unfortunately, this simple plant was the only thing that could kill Baldur. One day, Baldur was playing around with his twin brother Hoder, who was blind. Loki showed up and gave Hoder a dart made of mistletoe. Hoder, not knowing it was mistletoe, decided to jokingly fling it toward Baldur as a harmless prank. But unfortunately, it struck Baldur, and he perished. Loki is widely known as Thor's brother thanks to the Marvel movies, but in the Nordic mythos, he was actually Thor's uncle and a brother to Odin. A god of mischief, he was also said to be a Jotun. Loki is a trickster, and his mischievous deeds and accidents eventually led to Ragnarok. Loki is also the father to the world serpent Jormungandr, who kills Thor, the giant wolf Fenrir, who kills Odin, and the goddess of the underworld, Hel. During Ragnarok, Loki fights on the side of the Jotnar, giants, and other monsters against the gods. Thor was a son of Odin and the earth goddess Yor, although in some Germanic myths he was a son of the goddess Fjorgyn instead. Either way, Thor is famous as a god of thunder and strength, as well as for being Asgard's most staunch defender. He was believed to be the strongest of all the gods and other mythical beings, and would ride across the sky on a chariot drawn by two giant goats. During Ragnarok, Thor manages to kill the world serpent, Loki's monstrous child Jormungandr, but he also dies moments later from its venom. Wife of Odin and matriarch of the Aesir pantheon, Frigg or Frigga was a goddess of the sky and had the power of foreknowledge. Frigg could see what would happen to everyone and everything around her. This didn't give her the power to stop Ragnarok or save her beloved son Baldur, however, as events in the Norse mythology are predestined and cannot be changed. It also didn't really stop Odin from going behind her back to enjoy the company of many other goddesses, giantess, and Jotnar. Nevertheless, Frigg was worshipped and beloved by all Norse people. She was also associated with fertility, marriage, motherhood, and domestic stability. The All-Father God who stands atop the Aesir pantheon, Odin is one of the most beloved and well-known of the Nordic gods. As wise and loving as he was fierce and powerful, Odin looked after the 9 realms from the day of their creation until Ragnarok, the end of days in Norse myths. In the different Nordic cultures, Odin was also called Woden, Owen, Wodan, or Wotan. In fact, the modern English word Wednesday comes from the Old English Wodansdag, or the Day of Odin. And finally, the last Norse deity on our list. While not technically a god, Ymir is at the center of the Norse creation myth and of supreme importance to Norse mythology. A cosmic entity that's essentially a personification of the entire universe, Ymir was the first giant and ancestor of all giants and gods. He was slain by Odin and his 2 brothers, Ve and Vili. Before his death, Ymir had given birth to the Jotnar, primeval beings who came directly from Ymir's flesh. When Odin and his brothers killed Ymir, the Jotnar fled on the rivers of their father's blood and scattered across the 9 worlds. As for the worlds themselves, they were formed from Ymir's dead body. His body became mountains, his blood became the seas and oceans, his hairs became trees, and his eyebrows became Midgard, or Earth. The Norse gods were revered and worshipped by the Vikings and other Nordic people, and thanks to them, these myths continue to live on in modern culture. Although some characters exist in different versions than the originals, they continue to enthrall and inspire. If you like to watch similar videos about mythology, please consider subscribing and hitting the like button. Don't forget to click the notification button as well so that we can let you know when new videos and updates become available. Thank you for watching.